Good afternoon, folks. Welcome to another episode of Spilling Tea. I'm your host, Tiffany Daniels. We'll get to the JRC here in a moment, but first, the usual disclaimer and the trigger warnings. So, folks, you know the drill. If you are unfamiliar with the Stop the Shocks campaign or the campaign against the troubled teen industry, pertinent links are going to be there for you in the description box. Along with what are, hoping at least, some helpful labels in there so that you know what you're clicking on. Just in case you want to do a little bit of the deep dive on the Judge Rothberg Educational Center on your own, in which case I do recommend first off the link we give to Autistic Hoya's massive archive on the subject, because that pretty much has just about everything. Court transcripts, ER photo documentation of injuries caused by the GED device. We've got ER documentation that speaks in detail about injuries received from the students there at the JRC, the ones that got injuries from their so-called direct care staff. It even includes, believe it or not, even the JRC staff and JRC apologists stating their views. Because, unlike what they try to portray out in the media, we like to be fair by displaying both sides for you to make up your minds, and then while reading through documentation is where you'll hear our opinions. So, that's a good one. The link to Neuroclastic's article, the one they surveyed over 800 ABA professionals in regards to the Judge Rothberg Educational Center's entirety behavioral modification program, the whole thing. And, of course, the JRC really did not like that too much. There's something in that article that spooked them, so they threatened Neuroclastic with a defamation lawsuit. They did not remove their article off of their own website. Neuroclastic refused. Read it and share it, folks. And as always, we got a link to their GoFundMe as well, in case the JRC ever actually does see through with the threat. If you can give, they'd appreciate it. If you can't, things are tight, please go ahead and share it. I know they would appreciate that as well. Trigger warnings. Alright, folks, when we talk about, excuse me, I almost got ahead of myself. It's been a disorienting day. I'll tell you guys about it here in a minute, but first, let me start over on that. We do have this channel marked not for kids for a reason. First off, when we talk about places like the Judge Rothberg Educational Center, Tobin World, Circle of Hope, Agape for Boys, or Boarding School for Boys, or Kanakuk Camp, you're going to hear some vivid descriptions of, catch clips of surveillance footage of people with mental health issues and disabled people being tortured and abused. And also, yes, we do use profanity on this channel. So if your child is 16 and younger and they are watching this, very much parental supervision is very much advised. Now, as to the reason in regards to why I'm kind of stumbling over my speech and I'm a little bit visibly discombobulated, those who've been with this channel from the beginning knows that my last relationship didn't just go the way of the dodo, it imploded. And culminated in a horrifying night where the ending result was that my ex tried to murder his sister in front of me with a replica samurai sword. I ran back there to stop it, managed to get, essentially my hand got yeah, my hand got cut up. And I ended up having to haul ass with no shoes, just socks, over to my poor neighbor's house because at the time we did not have a functioning phone, and beat on the door. And God bless them that they didn't just automatically call the cops because I was terrified. And then, yeah, called the cops. She went to the hospital. He went to jail. She came back, started calling me things such as a whore and a thief. Kept screaming at me to get out, so I packed my little backpack with the very last picture I had of my dad while he was still here with us, and a few other things, and essentially was out in the third largest city of my state at 3 a.m. in the morning. Now, I have moved on since that incident. And last year, in January, said X tried to get a hold of me on one of my social media. I blocked him. It's been almost a year. Thought it was over with. My mom got a hold of me today. He messaged her from an account that she didn't recognize to try and get in touch with me. See now, no. If an individual does not talk to you in 10 years, and when you reach out to them, they block you, what you are not going to do is then go and trouble their family, considering the very reason they are avoiding you like the plague is because of your own actions, and actions have consequences. So, I'm absolutely enraged. And I know that now my PTSD is going to be kicking my ass probably for at least the next 2 to 3 weeks and fueling me with absolute utter paranoia. I can only thank God that I have what I like to jokingly refer to as my anti-psycho pills. I am safe and everything, guys. You don't need to worry about that. As far as I know, these individuals don't really know where I am. But it's starting to get a little stalkerish. And third strike is a report gets filed. I'm not playing. I will deal with a lot. And I will handle it alone. You do not bother my family, period. Okay? Anyway, so that's why I'm discombobulated, folks, and upset. So you might hear me as we go throughout this video today get a little bit jumbled up in my words. I do apologize for that in advance, but as always, it's a little bit of TMI, but it's my channel, so it's not like it's anything that's going to go viral. Alright, so where we left off yesterday. So, prior to their admission to JRC, the patients caused life-threatening injury and permanent disfigurement to themselves and others through their uncontrollable and violent behaviors, headbanging, eye gouging, tearing their own flesh, biting off body parts, pulling out their own adult teeth, punching their fists through walls and windows, jumping out of windows, jumping in front of moving vehicles, and attacking family members, teachers, staff, and other violent punches, kicks, headbutts, and bites. Look, if it isn't the JRC's usual gaslighting, followed up by character assassination and victim blaming. So JRC, let me make something real clear for you, okay? Every single last one of us are very aware about the dangers of self-injurious behavior and aggressive behavior. We got the goddamn memo. And we're real tired of you all repeating yourselves into infinity. But clearly you don't, or you would let us go on with it. No. No. You wanna know why? You wanna know why? Because even when we have those issues, it does not give you the right to strap anyone on a human shock collar that you specifically designed with the intent to cause intense physical pain to its wearers. Period. I don't care what the excuses are. What is there not to understand here? Trading out those injuries for the injuries that come from your GED device is not a solution. It's not medicine. It's simply trading one form of abuse for another form of abuse. In all actuality, the only real difference is the person that is abusing the student and what types of injuries that they are getting. That is literally the only difference. Okay? Let me be more blunt. You could have a student at the JRC that's literally Damien, the kid from The Omen. Okay? Got little evil Antichrist Damien at the JRC, right? I would still get every bit as angry, incensed at the type of so-called treatment you all use as I am now. Because what our behaviors are regards to ourselves, that does not excuse you to use abuse as treatment to so-called stop the abuse. I mean, it's so confusing. Like, saying it out loud is confusing. Let's play with the logic here. We're going to go back to, we're going to jump into a time machine real quick. We're going to deal with, like, itty bitty Tiffany, right? Now, 11, 12 years old. And I am at full force slamming myself face down, forehead first, into the floor with as much momentum as I can actually put behind the action repeatedly. I'm literally throwing myself into walls, sharp corner of actual solid oak dressers with those old, very cornered, pointy cornered types of dressers. I'm sure you're getting the picture. Right? I'm doing that. I'm punching myself at full force in the jaw, around the neck, in the ribs area. Right? Okay, let's say that gets to the point where I was no longer able to mask or hide it. Right? So, like the bruising shows, it's not something that can be covered up with clothes. It's not something I can just throw something over and nobody will notice. It becomes apparent. Right? Scary. There are so many times where I could have possibly ended up dead in my life. From that time period on, that if I read this somewhere, I would swear to God it was some bizarre Mary Sue fan fiction. Had I not actually lived it. Right? Okay. My mom takes me to the doctor. Woman who's been in healthcare for over 40 years. A woman who has, within that career, at different spaces of time, dealt with individuals with the same types of behaviors the JRC is just ticking off in regards to their students. You know, a woman that has literally had to tackle individuals in the middle of manic episodes like she was a linebacker. Funny how she managed to subdue and calm down said individual without having to resort to any form of aversives, only by using simple restraint techniques. Right? Anyways. So we haul my ass off to a place like the JRC. Right? They put me on the human shock collar. Now tell me, my friends, would then using that device causing second and third degree burns, heightening and making worse my paranoia and fear than it was already at the time, creating new injuries, but injuries nonetheless? Has anything actually changed about the situation other than the type of the abuse being inflicted and the change of scenery? How are you going to sit here and try to convince people that you can cure someone from hurting themselves by means of hurting us yourselves instead? Does that actually change the situation? Or does this actually mean that these new injuries are going to come with their own ramifications and their own risks and could be potentially fatal down the line? Which, by the way, JRC, we already know, considering you have the death of 6 kids already on your hands. Very funny how you never seem to want to bring them up during your defense of your insanity. I'm not afraid to bring them up. Well, then, if you were that out of control, we don't believe you. We don't believe you, because look how you're behaving now. Well, would you look at that autistic's age, grow, learn, mature even. And in my case, I really started coming out of all of that when I finally got the acceptance and the friendships that I had wanted my whole life but had been cruelly denied and bullied relentlessly instead when I began advocacy, when I was able to get into groups with my neurodivergent peers and felt for the first time in my goddamn life that I was not alone. That I was understood, that I didn't have to apologize for my existence every 5 minutes, that I didn't have to say sorry for having natural stems, that I didn't have to apologize for info dumping. That's when things began to change. That's when the self-injurious behavior, although it will never completely be gone entirely, began to subside to a very, very rare event every so often. I'm going to have to be careful tonight considering what I told you guys just happened, because it can trigger an incident, so I'm going to have to be careful. Get these cool little adaptogen drinks with like magnesium and ashwagandha in here, along with, of course, my kava tea, which I'll be having later, that will hopefully help me not get triggered into one of those incidents, but I'm kind of prepping myself just in case. I tell you these things because my behaviors were extreme. They were dangerous. I could have very much ended up dead from some of those episodes. I know this for a fact. Been surrounded by individuals who worked in the medical field my entire life for as far back as I can possibly remember. Okay? But between getting around my own folks, my own fellow neurodivergents, getting into proper treatment with individuals who know what they are doing, and yes, getting appropriate pharmaceutical medication to help me manage the parts that are out of my control, I am no longer that threat to myself that I once was when I was younger. And none of that required any form of adversive therapy. So listing out these behaviors does not justify what you do to those students, JRC. That's the one thing you all continually refuse to understand. Meeting violence with violence, regardless of the intent, is only going to have one thing. Sorry, I did say I'm discombobulated. If you meet violence with violence, you're only going to get more violence. Just because you call that violence medicine doesn't make it medicine. You're making things worse, not better. Okay? let me continue here. I'm saying this and gave you that little story because I've had people scream at me all day that I don't understand. I'm not like their child. Well, the fact of the matter is that may be true now, but it sure as hell wasn't true at 10 to 11 to 12 years old. Okay? Now, I'm going to go ahead and continue. These patients continue to engage in severe SIB and AB despite being evaluated and treated with all the standard treatments at some of the nation's finest hospital and treatment programs. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Lie. The JRC's lips are moving. They're lying. Okay. You said they were evaluated, yes? Funny you mentioned that, as there has been a disturbing lack in the multiple stories I have heard about your students of anyone mentioning getting a full functional behavioral assessment done before entering any type of school or intervention program. You see, that's the evaluation I and the rest of the medical model are the most interested in. But they were evaluated. You mean for their diagnosis? That's not the type of evals that we are talking about here, JRC. So I'm going to ask you again. These kids that you are victim blaming, did they come into your school with an already completed full functional behavioral assessment carried out by a third objective party with no ties to the JRC? The type of full functional behavioral assessment that has been approved by the state of Massachusetts? Yes or no? Because if the answer is no, I don't want to hear a goddamn thing about so-called evals. Because in regards to choosing proper programs that are going to work best to address the specific neurodivergent individual in question, it cannot be done in any meaningful, proper way without that assessment done, period. A diagnosis is a diagnosis. A full functional behavioral assessment provides the information necessary to make the best educated decision in regards to which type of program is going to best assist the very specific issues that are being faced by that particular student. If they are not coming in with full functional behavioral assessments, I don't care to hear about any other type of evals because they are irrelevant to the subject at hand. Period. Period. In all of the standard treatments, JRC, we've already proved the fact that you have absolutely no idea what the standard treatments are, what the mile markers are within those treatment programs, how they are utilized, nor do you even understand the current data in regards to the success rates. This has been proved over and over and over again. In particular because of the fact that your so-called success rate with the GED device is dead even. Dead even with the standard overall regular type of treatment program for individuals who do deal with SIB and AB. You are literally at the same percentage. 80% success rate. Did y'all know that? I knew it. So what does that mean? What that tells me is if the other programs you all lambast all day are operating at the same high level of percentage, 80% in regards to success rates in dealing with these types of behaviors as your GED device, then why wouldn't you try those alternative treatments instead of putting a human shock collar on someone? And for the love of God, please stop with the, but they tried those other programs. No, they didn't. Matter of fact, when some of these parents have been interviewed, any of the other therapies we have mentioned, they didn't even know what they were. Nobody ever provided them any resources about alternative ways of dealing with these behaviors. Nobody helped them navigate the service system. Nobody told them that they needed to get a full functional behavioral assessment done before throwing their kid into an intervention program. Nobody told them this. So you can't sit there and say, well, we tried everything. When you have these parents saying, wait, person-centered planning? Person-centered therapy? What is that? Nobody's ever told me about that. What do you mean about positive behavioral reinforcement? You mean positive behavior supports? No, the JRC said it doesn't work. I'm like, no, they're not the same thing. Positive behavioral reinforcement is an actual therapy in and of itself. PBS is an umbrella term that helps to categorize a list of different types of therapies that do not include any form of aversive therapy. They look at you like you're a chicken with your head cut off. So that tells me that no, everything else hasn't been tried. And let me follow that up with an oldie but a goodie. It doesn't matter how well rated any particular type of program or school happens to be that you send the student to. If you do not have a proper full functional behavioral assessment done, you get no idea whether the particular program that that school specializes in is actually going to really help to deal with those behaviors or not. Point blank. But they're highly rated. Does that program actually address the types of triggers those kids have that are causing these behaviors? Well, there's no way to know that. Yeah, there is. It's called a full functional behavioral assessment. I will preach the good gospel of the full functional behavioral assessment until I'm senile. And I'm going to come back as a ghost. Show up my old regional office. Full functional behavioral assessment. Woo! So, yeah. I'm going to have to finish this, aren't I? God help us. But I'm going to give both you and I a brief break first. We're going to cut out on this one, and we'll finish the rest of the paragraph here in the next video, which we're going to cut between today and tomorrow because I need to go ahead and take care of the food snap series and get my video out for that for you all today before we hang it up and it's time for pseudo-autistic bubble of note, silent film, food, leave me alone time. We don't get very many views on this channel, and the few we do tend to get removed from time to time. So folks, if you could, please don't forget to hit the like button, hit subscribe, and please don't forget to hit the comments. I do appreciate your time, and as always, folks, we here at Spilling Tea absolutely do hope you have a good one. I will see you all tomorrow. Bye-bye, everyone.